Let's talk about the cost of moving to the United Kingdom. By itself can already be quite an expensive exercise, but adding on top of that you are moving abroad to a new country, there's going to be a lot of different costs that you need to take into consideration. But if you start planning and saving for these costs in advance, you are going to be totally fine. And that's why I wanted to make today's video, to break down all the costs that you need to consider when you are moving to the UK. Let's start with the biggest and the most important expense, the cost for your visa. If you are moving to the UK from a different country and you are not a UK citizen, chances are high that you are probably going to need a visa, especially if you want to work in the UK. When applying for your visa, there are some additional costs that you also need to consider, because you will need to get some certifications and documents that you need to include in your application. One example of this is a TB test to prove that you don't have tuberculosis. This is only applicable if you are currently living in a country where TB is a high risk, and there is a list of the countries that require this on the UK government's website. So if you are not from one of those countries, you don't have to worry about this test. For some countries, you might also need to prove that you are proficient in English to a certain level, and this applies if you are moving from a country where English isn't the main spoken language in that country. You will have two options to prove this, and unfortunately both of them will have a cost involved. The first option is to pay to do an English test to prove that you are on a certain level, or the second option is that you can pay the UK NARIC organization to verify your qualification or degree that you have done in English, and they will then provide you with a certificate to state that because you did this qualification in English, you meet this specific level of English. If you are applying for a long-term visa, when you pay for this, you will probably also have to pay for the National Health Surcharge. The fee for the NHS is a yearly fee, but you don't pay that annually. You have to pay the full amount for all the years that your visa is valid for when you do the application. Paying this means that once you arrive in the UK, you are able to use the public health services for free. In some cases, there might be an additional charge if you need very specialized care or medicine, but there will be a lot of services that you can just use for free because you already paid for it when you made the application. If this is your first time applying for a visa and you are feeling overwhelmed by all the information and documents that you need to get, you might also want to consider using an immigration agency to help you with your visa application. I personally went this route because I wanted to make sure that I had all the documentation and there would be no way that I wouldn't get my visa. But of course, if you choose to use an agency, there will of course be an agency fee to pay for their time. The last cost relating to the visa that I want to mention is that you can also pay to fast track your visa application if you're in a situation where you need feedback on your visa very quickly. They make this service very expensive, so I would only use it if you really need to. But it is helpful that that option is there if you are in a situation where you need it. And as I mentioned at the start, if you already know that you are going to need this, you can plan and budget for that cost in advance. The cost for the fast track is also going to depend on the specific visa that you apply for. Moving, of course, always includes a cost to move your stuff from the one place to the next. But this time, instead of getting a delivery truck, you are probably going to have to get a container to ship your things to the UK. You might be in a situation where you've decided to sell all your things and you're only going to take luggage on the airplane. It can be expensive to buy all of that stuff new in the UK. So if you're planning to move for the long term, I would definitely recommend considering to rather ship your things over to the UK. The cost for a shipping container is again going to depend on how much space you need, and that is going to influence if you are going to take a private shipping container or a shared shipping container. I have spoken about this on my channel before, but basically a private shipping container is where you have the entire container for yourself. You decide when the container is shipped out, when it is delivered again in the UK. Whereas if you get a shared container, you only take up a certain amount of space in the container and the rest of the container is filled with other people's things. So you have to wait for the container to be filled up before it's actually shipped out. So you don't have that much of a say in when it's actually shipped and delivered. However, it is a lot cheaper than a private container. So if you are okay with a bit of flexibility around the dates and you don't really have enough stuff to fill up an entire container, a shared container is definitely the cheaper option to go with. Now that your things are sorted and they're on their way to the UK, we obviously have to sort you out as well. So remember that you have to budget for flights to actually get to the UK. Again, the cost of flights are very much going to differ depending on which country you're actually flying from. I personally flew from South Africa, and for a one-way ticket for 2 people to the UK, I would say to budget around £400 to £500. With the flight, you might want to consider also buying extra luggage so that you can take 2 or 3 bags instead of just the 1 bag. This depends on how much clothes you were actually able to put in the container. Maybe you don't need more than 1 bag, but if you were still in your country for a while after your things were shipped, you might have had to keep a lot of clothes with you, so then having that extra luggage is definitely going to be handy. I find that the extra cost for an additional bag is usually around £60. If you're not sure yet if you are staying in the UK for long term and you don't want to sell all your things, another cost that you might want to consider is a storage locker. This way you can keep all your stuff and just store it while you're away in the UK. If you are shipping your things over, that won't be necessary. But you might want to consider getting storage in the UK, especially if you don't have a house or apartment yet, because your things might arrive in the UK and then you don't have any way to move it into. So it's good to just have that in the budget in case you do need some extra storage for a while. Once you have found a flat or apartment in the UK that you want to stay in, you will probably have to pay a deposit. This is pretty standard for any house or flat that you're renting, and the cost for the deposit is usually 1 month's rent or 1.5 months rent. So make sure that you have enough savings before so that you can cover that deposit and your first month's rent at the same time. This last one isn't a necessity, but definitely something I would very strongly recommend, and that is having at least 3 months of savings when you arrive in the UK. What I mean by this is that you have enough to cover your basic expenses like your rent, your food, transport, and utilities, so that if you don't get a job or income as soon as you arrive in the UK, at least you have a bit of savings that you can use just while you are still settling in. That covers the list of all the costs that you need to consider. The list really isn't that long, but it's just that the amounts can be quite big, and that's why it's important to save and plan for these costs in advance. I really hope this breakdown of all the costs helped you to start working on your moving budget to the UK, and I wish you all of the best with moving abroad, and I hope you have an amazing adventure. If you have any other questions about costs and things like that, let me know in the comment section and I will try my very best to answer them. If you found this video helpful and you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a like down below to help support my channel. I really appreciate all the feedback I get from you guys and the support. Thank you so much for watching this video, and then I will see you in a new video next week.